The left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this? I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very quickly. I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth will no longer meet federal health and safety standards for Medicaid and Medicare and will be terminated from the program immediately.
Yes, sir. You just found it. Intercourse with you. Let's chat.
Today in the Court Show, I am your host, Mr. B. Today we have a very exciting show for you. As you guys know, it's an election season. That means there's a lot of different leaders that's being elected in the United States government, from the president, senators, governors, as well as local officials, as well as congressmen. Now, Trump has been running for re-election after a long, heated election cycle. He went up against Kamala Harris, and he prevailed in his efforts to win re-election. Now, a lot of people are concerned about what his agenda will be, and there are some folks who are not quite sure. But luckily, he has posted some things around what his plans are and what his agenda would be once he comes into office. As a Christian, this is something of utmost importance to me, especially because I have young children in the school system. Obviously, I want to succeed. And I know a lot of people who share my faith and also want to succeed as well. And so a lot of times when you vote on policy, you want to make sure that those policies is something that you find favorable. This particular show highlights some of the policies that Trump has said he will set out to do in his next term in office, some of which deals with the transgender issue that has been prominent in schools, where kids changing their sex and school officials not notifying parents, and things happening at the school that parents are not notified about. And there's a lot of people who take issue with that. In this particular segment, Trump will discuss what his plans are to address that issue and hopefully to solve it. And we'll respond and comment as we go along. All right, without any further ado, let's get into the video.
The left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this? I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very quickly. I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth will no longer meet federal health and safety standards for Medicaid and Medicare and will be terminated from the program immediately. Furthermore, I will support the creation of a private right of action for victims to sue doctors who have unforgivably performed these procedures on minor children. The Department of Justice will investigate Big Pharma and the big hospital networks to determine whether they have deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich at the expense of vulnerable patients, in this case, very vulnerable. We will also investigate whether Big Pharma or others have illegally marketed hormones and puberty blockers, which are in no way licensed or approved for this use. My Department of Education will inform states and school districts that if any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for sex discrimination and the elimination of federal funding. As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the roles of mothers and fathers, and celebrating rather than erasing the things that make men and women different and unique. I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth. The bill will also make clear that Title IX prohibits men from participating in women's sports, and we will protect the rights of parents from being forced to allow their minor child to assume a gender which is new and an identity without the parents' consent. The identity will not be new, and it will not be without parental consent. No serious country should be telling its children that they were born with the wrong gender, a concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today. It was all when the radical left invented it just a few years ago. Under my leadership, this madness will end. Thank you very much.
There you have it. That was President Trump sharing his thoughts about what he plans to do to address this transgender issue within schools. I think there's a couple points that he raised that I wholeheartedly agree with across the board. I don't agree that a child should be able to make the determination that they were born in the wrong body at a very tender age when they're not even cognitive of their surroundings. They're not responsible enough to make such a decision, but they're being sort of coerced to think that they were born in the wrong body. I don't agree that the school should have the right to withhold that information from the parents if the child should say something of that nature. I don't agree that the school should prevent parents from being informed or take measures to penalize parents who don't want their children exposed to things of that nature. And that seems to be the case right now. It's actually law in certain states. And Trump seems to be, hell-bent on reversing that because he grew up from an era where that was never a thing even suggested. And now all of a sudden it becomes a major focal point of the previous administration and of Democratic leadership. For some reason, they feel that kids should be mutilated and parents should know about that and should not be able to take measures against their efforts to permit the kid to change their sex. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that. It does not align with my beliefs as a Christian, and I wouldn't support such an act. I think in this particular policy, Trump has valid grounds to do everything that he sets out to do in terms of his agenda, and I support it wholeheartedly. That's just my take. Now, I invite everyone who has not been a part of this show to take part weigh in, let your voices be heard. But I do think that, as Christians and people who stand on biblical faith, these are things that we do have to be a bit more vocal about. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves in a situation where we're on the outside looking in, and these policies are being passed and pushed down our throats without us having much of a say. And I think the mandate that Trump has been given to start this new term, he won all the swing states. He won the popular vote. It seems like America is saying, we agree with your agenda over the agenda that's been proposed or that's been in action. And I think he has a very strong mandate to undo some of the things that policies and laws has been enacted in the last administration. So with that, he has my support. For those who are not connected to the show, I ask that you log in and lock in, right? Be a part, let your voices be heard, like, subscribe, and share to your friends and family, and loved ones. All right, until the next time.